Okay, so it is 1:03. Let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, please, George.
Lee.
Here.
Blair. Here. Topper.
Here.
Yang.
Here.
Okay, for the minutes from the last meeting, which was quite some time ago, any changes, any comments on the meeting minutes?
Love the minutes.
Love the minutes?
Good comment.
Oh, very good. Okay, if none, they are approved. Any resident speakers?
No, we don't have anyone.
Okay, and staff report, and we'll invite Eric to make his presentation.
Okay, all right, everybody, our last meeting together, not last, because we'll continue on, and Arnold will be at the helm next time. But we'll go through some of our standard things and leave time for other questions and comments and other commentary at some point in our meeting. Okay, so to start off with our regular staff report, let me give you some of the numbers that kind of reflect what's currently happening in the world of employment here at GRF. Currently, we have a headcount of 258 employees. Of those 258, 211 are full-time and part-time regular. We have 121 full-time employees, 82 union employees, which are also full-time, 8 part-time, and then a combination part-time on-call seasonal of 47 employees. To date, we've had 12 hires. Of those, 9 are regular and are part-time regular, full-time or part-time regular. We've had 6 terminations, 5 of those being regular or part-time regular. Our turnover rate stands at 2.4%, which is really good, but then that also escalates at the end of the year when we get final numbers for hires and terminations through the year, but we're doing really good on that. Average tenure is 9.8 years. One of the things I also wanted to mention, because we have this data readily available, and I don't think I've ever reported it in a staff session, is just the breakdown of the different generations, the baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z, which again are the 4 operating ones right now. So right now we have 26.5% of our workforce are baby boomers, those born between 1945 and 1964, which I am the last of the boomers. Generation X is 1965 to 1980. It comprises our largest portion of our workforce, which is 45%. Millennials, 1981 to 1994 at 19.9%. And then the newest generation of workers, Generation Z or Gen Z, they were born between 1995 and 2010. 8.5% of our population comprises Gen Z. And I'm going to circle back to that in a second because I wanted to talk about something that I think might be of interest to you. I also wanted to kind of point out too that we have a combination of exempt, non-exempt employees. The breakdown between that is our salaried employees is 19.4% to our non-exempt employees are paid hourly at 80.6. The reason why I think that's significant for this committee is that generally when you think of exempt employees, you think of managers, leaders within organizations, which are exempt. The norm within a business environment is 1 to 5, a 1 to 5 ratio, meaning that you have 20% of your workforce that's management opposed to 80%, which is our non-exempt workers. Ours is 19.4, but I also want to mention that 19.4, we have other positions that are exempt, but they're not management. So for example, there are certain personnel within accounting at a professional level that are exempt positions. Our IT crew are exempt professionals, most of them. Are inspectors, building inspectors, because they carry with it a certain level of ability, standards, credentials, et cetera, that makes them exempt. So if I took that away from that 19.4%, that leaves about 15% of our staff here. So I just wanted to show for GRF that ratio. So if somebody says, well, you guys seem to have so many managers and you're top heavy. No, we're not. We're at 15%. So it's just below the norm on that, just to let you know. And it's good to consider in this committee because we talk about compensation and total rewards for that. I want to show, I think it's just an interesting slide here on the generational differences in the workplace. Now, I've spoken to you And as I've gotten older, I can't remember whether it's last year or 2 years ago or when, but I think it's good to hop for
You
Arnold.
just got older last year? Is that what you're saying?
I just, yeah,
I just wanted you to clarify.
It's
your
been
statement.
slowly declining over the years.
It's gonna
so
get a lot
everything's-
worse.
I noticed
This
that.
year, you're complaining to the wrong group.
That's right.
But, you know, I mentioned the generational differences, and it's important to know in the planning of this committee and information that you engage in with Will Arnold going forward, when we talk about benefits, pay and compensation, what that looks like for GRF. And the reasons why are that motivation and reasons for work are different among the generations. So in summary here, I've listed here, boomers value loyalty and experience versus, you know, Generation Z values authenticity and technology. And you have these different characteristics for each. When I go down in the, here we go. You'll see some of the breakdown. So for each of the generations, this document talks about like their work ethics, their values, their preferred methods of communication and receiving feedback. And you'll notice just in comparison of taking a look at baby boomers to Generation X, there's some significant differences in what each generation looks for when they're at work, right? So I think it's interesting because when you're talking to an individual, based on their age, where they're at, you may have to have a kind of a different conversation when you're talking about work. For this committee, when we're talking about pay and benefits, we may have to have different conversations when it comes to what does it take to attract and retain employees within the workplace. So I thought it'd be fun just to kind of open it up to give like a first example. So what I've listed here are the newer generations, right? So we're looking at the future. The baby boomers are kind of moving out of the workforce. Millennials will be there for a little bit longer, but the millennials are here to stay, as well as the rising generation. When you take a look at the work ethics, values, communication, career, and compare it to both, how might that be different if you're looking at incorporating or designing or introducing new benefits, our policies, our structure, if our goal is to attract and retain employees? So as an example, the baby boomers is that in order to attract them to the workplace, they're looking for a place that they can come and stay. Longevity is very important. So you see people who have worked in our generation for like decades, and that's a badge of honor versus today where employees, if you find people with like 4 years of experience, you know, that's pretty good, right? So, and you hear in these conversations that we have, it's like, well, I can't afford to pay people more. We all really realize here that money is not the end motivator for all employees. It's important that we take a look at these things here. So for example, is that if our newest generation, Generation Z, are looking at transparency and inclusive, let's look at this. I'll just use it as an example. In their communication, they're looking for, and they value transparency and inclusivity.
They want to know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that mean in terms for our policies and potentially benefits and things that we offer at GRF for employees?
I think you have a very good speech here right now.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to mention something, I watch the Taiwan largest chip manufacturer investing in Arizona.
Can you speak up?
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. The number one chip producer in Arizona running into a deep problem. Okay, and until they have the president, I think his name is I forgot, but he was a graduate from West Point, and he had a lot of veterans. Suddenly, the whole workforce go for it. It's not individually you want this, they want that. You know, so it's very good. Thank you.
Well, and that's a good example too, is that when you hire a workforce that are very similar, you may gain efficiencies in one area, but you exclude a lot of other opportunities for them.
Thank you.
You'll notice that, millennials here, for values, what do they value? They look for work-life balance, purpose, diversity, and inclusivity. That's not something that the baby boomers look for. It's not as important to them. But here is something today, here and now, what I think is a concern for us, if 45% of our workforce now is Generation X, and their values are being pragmatic, adaptable, and skeptical of authority, that offers some management challenges for individuals. It's not that, there's the, I remember years ago when we talked about the rising Generation X, our criticisms of them is like, well, they know it all, or they feel like they're know-it-alls and stuff. But really, it's they want to be able to operate independently. They want to learn, but they want to contribute, but they want to do it on their own terms. It's not like the newer generation. But if you look at what they're looking for, is they often seek job stability and also financial security. That may dictate things that we do as a committee in determining what our benefit mix looks like for them going forward in the future. So I really could spend a whole session talking about this,
It's really
my
interesting.
sermon and everything like that. But
Will
I
you
say
send
that,
this to us?
oh yes,
Oh,
I did not include that in that packet, but
Right.
I will need to send that to Jory and you'll upload that into the, yes, we'll have all that.
Yeah.
But it is a great read for that.
Can you send a copy to Jeff?
To,
Jeff?
Jeff, yeah, like that, where's Jeff? He didn't come from my last meeting. Oh, man. Oh my gosh, my
Well, that
feelings
must
are,
tell you something.
my feelings are hurt. Okay,
All right.
all right, so that's it really for my report on the
This is
staff
the
report.
third meeting of the day. He might have.
Okay, he needs some caffeine, he needs something, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. No unfinished business, new business. Oh my gosh, it's Eric.
Yeah, what am I doing there? What am I doing
Well,
there?
you could delegate it.
Well, you'll have a chance to hear Arnold in just a bit. Let's bring up the other slides.
Why don't you give us a little background on Arnold first? Did I miss that?
Oh, I'm happy, that's right, you weren't here at our last meeting.
Oh, that could.
That's when I brought him for the first time.
Yeah.
But I'll
That
just
was
take
back in
this,
February,
I'll take
so,
the
yeah,
opportunity.
it's
So
coming up
with
I'm
my
sorry.
leaving, I'm happy to, I was happy to announce Arnold as my successor for that. So Arnold really is an amazing person. He's ready to take on the reins here. Arnold comes from a background both in HR and operations. You'll hear about that in my last article, I think will be in the Rossmore News.
Oh,
Okay.
But Arnold is perfect for this role because he understands both from a practical and an educational level how human resources works. But he's also worked on the business side within operations. So for human resource individuals, we are an internal resource to operations, but it would be harmful, or if not just wrong, for us to operate in a bubble. We can't operate in a bubble. Our effectiveness depends on our ability to understand how the departments and businesses work. Arnold has that mindset that he's worked in years in retail and has been in this different departments. So we make sure that the policies, practice, and programs that we work with in human resources helps to make sure that the operations is able to function smoothly. If we did that separately, then we would have no value here. Not all HR people do that. A lot of HR people who come from just, who graduate from college and have all the head experience, they don't have that practical experience.
Absolutely.
So Arnold really kind of is great for that. So I'm happy to turn over the reins to him. He'll be fantastic.
And with all the teachings from Eric as well, I know his knowledge transferring them to me, so that was great.
He's been listening to all our committee
Oh,
videos and things.
catching up on
so he's got
everything, all the
a-
meetings, the GRF meetings, so I got a few more years to go.
There you go.
How long have you been here with us?
3 years, it's gonna be 3 years in June.
Oh, good.
Yes.
I haven't seen him.
where?
In Rossmore.
Oh, you've worked here before?
Yeah,
Oh, he works
Oh,
here
I didn't
now.
hear that.
He's on staff.
yeah.
He's on
it's that.
staff.
He's
Yeah,
part of the staff.
He's our currently, I'm sorry, and Arnold
I
is
missed
currently,
that part.
yeah, he's being promoted up. He's currently our human resource generalist too. As an
Oh.
HR generalist
Mhm.
too. One, two, one, yeah.
So when I came in on board, so I started as an HR generalist too. Pretty much my main responsibility was employee relations.
Yes.
Manage at all levels, all field workers, managers and all that. And also being the admin for leave of absences. Either employees taking time off to care for themselves or for a family member, also manage the workers' comp administration and partner with our vendors as well. And another critical part was safety. So when I came on board with the support from Eric and other partners within GRF, we established our safety committee team. And that's been helping us out a lot in dealing with preventing injuries from happening here at GRF and making sure our employees are getting the necessary tools to perform their jobs and address with any concerns or anything that they want to bring in.
So you already know like how the whole place works
Yes,
and what the issues are
Yep,
and what
yes.
causes the most struggle.
exactly,
Yeah,
so
that's
where
great.
we have,
That's great.
yeah,
Well,
where the
welcome.
opportunities are and
Yeah.
of course,
Well,
yeah.
welcome very much.
Thank you.
He's able to connect with employees really at all levels,
Yeah,
from management
that's
to those coming in. His Spanish abilities has been fantastic,
Yeah.
kind of bridging gaps where we haven't had that before, so.
You
I
don't
think-
speak Spanish?
No. You guys speak English.
Okay, very good,
Welcome, welcome.
thank you.
So let's go on to the next section. I will share this, see if it comes up. Okay, so these slides are in your package here. And I thought this meeting, there's nothing to decide on as a committee, but I wanted to use this kind of one of our early meetings in the year to kind of do some reminders and grounding for the committee, kind of like I talked about with generational differences. I thought it would be important for you to have an understanding of our different our different benefit plans, group benefit plans, how they're being utilized, some of the challenges we see on the horizon, things that we take a look at when we're trying to make decisions about our benefits for our employees. So this first slide here is just a kind of a summary of how we've utilized Kaiser since 2020. Now, I do want to say that we've had Kaiser now for almost 30 years, which when we've made decisions on whether or not we want to go to a different plan or not, the answer will always be no, because it's so ingrained with our employees here. And you have probably experienced yourself the turmoil and trauma of moving from one network to another, trying to find new doctors, new services, and navigating new systems. So Kaiser is here to stay. I also think though that we've had a pretty good working relationship with with both our Kaiser representatives as well as our brokers in helping us negotiate costs each year, which we don't have that leverage like some employees. We can't go to the bargaining table and say, we really want X%. As a small employer, we're kind of subject to small employers as a group. And as a group, we have less bargaining power, if you will. But if you take a look at our rates here, you can see what our increases have been since 2020. 2023 and then 2024 were some big years for us. That's also when Kaiser had made an announcement that our cap increased from 15% to 25%, meaning that each year we are subject to up to a 25% increase in cost. Now, we've never seen that when you take a look at these rates here, but we want to make sure that we're doing the right things on our side to help limit that type of exposure. And thankfully, we came in at 9.6 that first year. In 2024, we were expected to have an increase at 12.7% at our initial review. But if you recall, that's when we adopted the new high deductible program. And by moving into a more cost-effective program for the foundation and employees, the cost per premiums, our actual renewal came down to 3.7%, which is pretty darn good. I can say, pat myself in the back for that and others. And your decisions here as a committee. 2025, we saw a 5.75% increase, which is, I think below what some of the other organizations are seeing out there. Also want to note too is that Kaiser has backed down a little bit. So our cap instead of 25% moved back to 20%. So higher than 15, I don't know if it's kind of a smoke and mirrors thing, but at least I'll take 20% rather than the 25%. If that were to happen though, at 20%, then the committee will need to talk about what we could possibly do to kind of limit that type of increase in exposure to the foundation. So any questions on this slide here? Nope. Okay. Okay. I don't know if I can expand this. Oh, I can a little bit. I think this is the best I can do. Sorry. Again, it's on your packets. This slide here just shows you what our renewal actions were this year and what to expect next year. So we can always anticipate cost increases for our medical, like that slide that I just showed you. But for the other group health plans that we have, we may or may not have an increase. Like, for example, last year, we did not have an increase in dental. In fact, we had a decrease because we went out to market on that. We wanted to see if we were being competitive, at least on the dental program. And because of that, and their evaluation of our utilization and how long we've been with them, our current carrier, MetLife, came back with us, and because they wanted to retain us, they actually gave us a discount. So we saw a drop in our dental premiums for that year. For our vision, our life and voluntary life, basic and voluntary life, our EAP services, those all stayed the same. We actually have a rate guarantee through this year. Next year, they'll negotiate and we'll probably see an increase in those costs, minimal next year. And our UHC benefits, these are voluntary benefits that are paid for by employees. They've held those rates for a few years. So we won't see an increase on that until 2027. Questions on this? Okay. Okay, this just gives you a summary of our current enrollments here. I think one thing that would just probably be of interest to you, just to direct you, is that we've actually seen a decrease or a movement. More employees have moved out of the Kaiser buyout plan, that's the more expensive plan, and moved into the high deductible plan. So I mentioned that high deductible plan, it's about 1/3 less cost than the buyout. So anytime we can see movement, it's a win-win for both employees and GRF in terms of cost savings because of that higher plan.
So this says 92 people are enrolled.
Yes.
And did you not say there were 258 employees? So this is just full-time? Could you explain the
Sure,
difference?
yeah, and actually this next slide will actually show it a little bit better than
Oh,
what I
there you
explained
go.
it here.
I'm just
Where'd
being
it
a
go?
show for you.
Scroll.
Yeah.
It should be right under it.
Yeah.
Should
scroll-
Scroll down.
Scrolling or
No,
That's
it's.
just
Disappeared.
We have it.
Yeah, it's right below.
Oh, it's right below.
Oh,
There it
I
is.
see. There, thank you. I'm also wearing the wrong contact lenses these
There you
days, so
go.
it's not there. So, Maxine, I mentioned that there were 200 and something employees, but the only employees that are eligible for the health plan are full-time regular employees or part-time who are working 32 hours or more per week. Those are eligible for the medical plan.
Do the union employees also fall this one, or is it? a
No,
different one?
and that's a great question too. Union employees have separate benefits
Separate,
through union.
Through contract.
Okay, so
through
that's
contract,
what-
right. So this really only is the total enrolled are for non-union employees. And you'll also see too that not all employees choose to be in our plans. Some who have a spouse may decide to go on their plans or have other benefit options for them. So the total enrolled is 92. We actually had 34 employees that are eligible. If they wanted to be part of the plan, they could, but they decided to waive our insurance.
Do they get any compensation for that if somebody chooses not to take the insurance?
No, I've seen other employer plans who have done that. It's like, well, if you take your spouse's plan and you're not ours, then we'll give you like X amount
A
towards
little
something
bonus or
to kind of
Is that considered a
persuade
bribe?
them not to.
Yeah.
Well, like, to be honest, it is kind of like a
Yeah.
bribe not to be, not to do that. So, no, we've never done that as well here. I'm not saying that it's not wise or maybe something we would want to do maybe in the future if we were looking at cost savings. I think employees are more and more savvy about what's offered to them. And so if they have the choice between another spouse's and ours, I am sure that they're looking at costs and coverage though, too. So, but yeah, but that's a good question on who is eligible for that plan. Okay, and you'll see the breakdown, about 62 in the buyout plan, and that number is increased for the Kaiser HSA deductible. The high deductible plan is at 30. And so hopefully over the next year, we'll see increases in that. All right, so talking about what we could expect to see, these are things that are happening out in the world today in the market and for other employees who are having to consider and deliberate on, you know, what type of benefits we offer, what are we going to expect to see later on. So you'll see, I mean, this is something that you see in all the news, that healthcare costs will continue to rise because of the uncertainty and variability, both on, you know, how much it costs for services these days, what's offered, the consolidation of medical groups combined and gobbling up the smaller providers. Well-being, employers we still haven't got it right. And in fact, employers will never get it right. And you know, the reason why
Why?
is because people are all different, right? We talked about that in generations, just among those 4 generations. But even if you break that different, it's like my needs as a healthcare consumer are going to be different from yours or from Arnold's. You know, my family makeup might be different. You have single employees, others, men and women. So when you take a look at the demographics, trying to find a one-size group health plan to fit all at this day and age, it's almost impossible to do. So all employers have to think about that. And I'll take this back. That's why it's important to us to consider things as like, what is the average age group? Or what's the ratio between men and women? What generation are they in? Because even though it can't be perfect, we can still create a benefit plan that meets, hopefully, the majority of what our employees are looking for and where they're at right now. Pharmacy, evolution, revolution continues. You keep hearing talks about the good thing is that there are new medications coming on the market. The bad thing is all new medications are astronomical in costs. And so group health providers are having to determine whether or not they want to consider that something covered by their plan, or it's still too new and experimental before they bring that on to their plans. But those costs, they're passed on to consumers and the employers. Health plan marketplace changes with those that are entering into the plan. Again, the needs of the newer generation are different from those who are a little bit older. You have technology changes and advances, and these things are good, bad. Governance, to me, it's always bad. but you have laws that are coming out that are impacting costs and decisions along that way. Experimental processes of where they're at and the advances right now, what's approved by the FDA, all those things. Climate benefits has a role to play. I would say this is always something that's going to be important. We can talk about pay, but as a benefits comp committee, we have to always take a look at the right benefit mix, knowing that it doesn't apply to everybody equally, but how does it apply to here at Global Marine Foundation? All right, this is just this is what's happening out there too. This is what's been on the minds of other employees when we kind of benchmark ourselves. Their top 3 concerns are listed right here: affordability of coverage and design, the well-being of their workforce, that balance there, and then the employee experience. So the first 2, I think, are just, it's a given. We want to have health plans. Employers want to have health plans that have good coverage, that are applicable to their employees, what their employees are looking for, and at a good cost, right? A reasonable cost for both employee and employer. That's what we do as a committee. The employee experience is something I think that's arisen in the past few years because of the advances. So now, if you want to receive services, they send you to their website, and you've probably seen that too. And then there's just so much information there, let alone the processes for scheduling an appointment and gatekeepers and things like that, that you have to be technology savvy to get the information and the care that you need. I mean, it may be efficient on one hand and it may lower costs, but it's difficult for the employees. So if we really want to get value out of this benefit, we need to engage our employees to make sure that they understand what their benefits are, but also how to use them. Now, a great benefit that we have with our broker is that they take the time and they're willing to actually come here and spend time with employees to show what our benefits are and to show them how to use their benefits. The last thing is you want an employee to say, great, I have benefits, and then they take all their things and they put the papers in the drawer and they don't use them. So the more employees are engaging with their benefits, the happy they're going to be with their employer because they feel that they're getting something that's valuable for their needs and for their family needs. I want to show, well, let me go to this here too, because I think this is relevant, is that this slide here shows the engagement of our employees in the orange line, the top 2 orange lines, with what the region is and also what their experience is within the industry. And all I want to highlight here is that our employees are at a higher level of engagement with our plan. That means that they're calling, they're getting on the website, they're logging in, they're creating accounts, they're requesting services, they're utilizing their benefits. For me, as the manager, I want to make sure that this number is high. If I saw this down in the 70s or 60s, then something would be wrong. We would be paying for a benefit that's not being utilized. And if our purpose is to provide something, pay and benefits that are meaningful to employees, that would not be a good sign. So I think you as a committee can take confidence that, yes, it does cost us money, but our employees are using it and they're engaged with the service. And this slide here may be of interest just to show our average age of subscribers in the health plan are 51.7, age 51.7. The Kaiser regional average age is 41.9. And that kind of confirms what I've talked about before, is that we have a older employee population than most here. So 9.8 years older than the average here, than the industry. Gender is also notable too, is that for female enrollees in our plan, it's 57%, which is 9 points higher than what the average is. So that also means too, what we consider is that if we have a higher female population, we want to make sure that the type of coverage that we have appeals to women and particular healthcare needs that they want to have, right? And then our employment stability, just to show you 91%, that's just, what that means is that for people enrolled in health plans, is those who come and go. It shows that people here come and they stay, and we don't have any other option than Kaiser, but again, have a high utilization there. And then the last slide I wanted to go over that I skipped over was this here. These are different things that other employers are doing to address their rising healthcare costs. I will tell you that we are ahead of the game. We're in that dark purple section because we've done this recently with the adoption of the high deductible plan. We're looking at other options to kind of help limit the exposure that we have as an employer, to limit the cost, to shift the cost there. And also, it's not that we're changing vendors from Kaiser to another health plan, but we're looking at differences in plans or programs, offering other things like voluntary benefits that can help offset some costs that they may have that come up by surprise. Like, nobody expects to be in an accident. That's why they call it accident insurance, or being in a hospital, things like that, or catastrophic care. We've been offering those programs too for employees who need that other assurance and insurance and assurance to know that if something happens, that those are things that are there. So again, that's just a kind of a recap of what we've done, where we're at, what we're doing to help address the needs of our employees. All right, that's it for this side. Any questions on that at all?
You're doing a good job. So we got one more item. Mandatory federal and state benefits provisions that impact the GRF.
Yes, I'm gonna let Arnold talk more about this, but I'll just start off by saying is that I think it's also important to be aware that there are other expenses that we pay besides the cost of wages and the cost of benefits. As the employer, we pay into other things, Social Security, employment services through SDI payments and things like that. So those are just kind of a given that come out of our paychecks. We, as an employer, run lean. And I say that is that we hire minimally because we want to be accountable to the residents at Rossmore to provide services at the right level of personnel. The challenge for us, and I understand the frustrations from the community sometimes, is that when they see things like shutdowns in bus services, or if somebody's not available, or it's taking longer for somebody to get back to them, that could be related to many other reasons, not because of inefficiencies that we have, but it's because of sometimes unforeseen influences beyond our control that impact employees' ability to be here and present. So we hire employees on a full-time or part-time basis, they have their schedules. I feel that if everybody were hired and were here, that we would be able to provide that level of service that's expected to us. But there are many things that keep people from here. For example, we have vacations, but there are a lot of things that and job protections for leaves that allow people to be gone. And we've seen so much of that in these past few years. Arnold, in his role as the HR generalist, has been managing those leave of absences. And so he could speak, and I'll let him speak to many of these things here, these things that influence us. I think it's important for all of you to know what are some of the things that kind of derail us on a day-to-day basis that could have an impact to services that we offer because of what is happening behind the scenes that you might not always see.
Yeah, no, that's correct. So especially with one of the first items there, when we talk about workers' compensation. So that means when an employee reports an incident or an accident that happened on the job site, correct? This is something that not related to personal injuries that happen outside of work. So for workers' compensation insurance, what it is pretty much is that this is insurance that covers medical expenses for employees when they are injured on the job, and also for lost wages for employees who are injured and become ill while they were doing their duties. When it's required, so it is a California law that mandates all employees, except the state, to have workers' compensation insurance to protect our employees from work-related injuries. And what we're trying to do in the HR department and also in partnership with other managers and when they see their employees and try to protect them from being injured on the job. So we provide safety trainings in a monthly basis. There's mandated training that all employees need to take. And a lot of managers, they gather their employees all together and provide that training so they're aware on how to prevent falling from climbing a ladder, or making sure they are aware when driving their GRF vehicle of following the speed limits. And there are so many things that involves around safety, right? There is a lot of prevention that may happen there as well. And our numbers speak for themselves. We have reduced the number of incidents that we've had compared to prior years. We only have, so far this year's, like 5-6 different incidents that were non-recordable, meaning that they were only provided with self-care advice, meaning we also partner with company nurse, which is part of our insurance with Everest, which handles the workers' compensation claims. We have our employees contact them, and they have our employees talk to a registered nurse. And then the registered nurse is the one that decides if the employee needs medical treatment or if the employee just needs some, some icing or take some painkillers. Because if we do send employees, if we made a call to send an employee to a hospital or a clinic, that's gonna cost. And maybe the employee didn't need that. So it's just, just self-care. And that's been helping us a lot in reducing the cost there as well. And it's, of course, saves money, and that's more one. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the employees receiving the treatment that they need. If they report something, our obligation is to address that as well.
I'm just curious, last couple of years, average number of workers' comp claims?
From top of my head, let's say back in 2022, I can tell you easily probably around 30, and all that including self-care advice and serious injuries where employees had to go to the doctor. And it reduced drastically in 2023 to probably around 20, and it kept going down.
Okay.
As of right now, so we only have 6, 2025. Out of those 6, only one the employee needed medical treatment.
Okay.
But that was a minimum thing. So it wasn't that, it was not a major.
So you tell me,
It's being reduced.
yeah, you tell me it's a downward trend.
Yeah.
So do we attribute that to your safety program?
I would say so. I would say so.
Okay.
It's helped a lot. And with involvement with a lot of managers, they're really involved in it. They're very into it as well. They even request us for some specific trainings that we started rolling out the safety program with generic topics for the whole organization.
Okay.
But of course, there are departments that they need specific trainings that pertains just to their department. I'm not gonna have maybe an office worker do a ladder safety training. right?
Understandable. Yeah.
So then for them will be ergonomic
Right,
safety
right.
training. So that's what now with the support also from Carla Cole, which is our HR admin.
Okay.
She helps us put together some specific trainings for each department. And the same time, we ask managers for feedback. Is this working for you?
Yeah.
Because if this doesn't work for you, we can always change it, but we need to hear from you.
Okay.
And that's the main thing, the communication between the whole team is what's been helping.
So that's good to know that your program is paying off.
Yes, it is, it is.
What was your question?
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's just a kind of sharing a thought. 40-some years ago, I worked at the Rockwell, and that company is very funny. There's no sick leave. Okay. However, if you're sick, the company gives you as long as you need.
Yep.
Okay? At the very beginning, people would thought, oh, man, everybody gonna take advantage. Turns out, nobody. At least I was in engineering R&D center, several thousand engineers. Nobody calls sick. Because you have to accumulate your credibility. When you are really sick,
Right,
you get the coverage.
right.
And so it kind of a dramatic, okay? But like you say, different generation, different, expectation. And however, I always think about that. I never had like one day of call sick.
Okay.
For some years, I never had one. And all the other engineers the same, because you have a pressure, you have to work on. And many people, you give them 2 weeks, they try to use up 2 weeks. And that never happened.
Okay.
So,
Right, yeah. Okay. That's good. Yeah, we got a full time
So
commitment.
that's on the workers' comp side. I know we also have social security, Medicare, state disability insurance. State disability insurance is for employees, and we educate employees on what that is, especially for employees that are applying for family medical leave of absence. We have that program, which is federal, and we also have the California one, which is called CFRA, which is the California Family Rights Act. So those are entitlements to all employees that have worked at least with a company and organization for at least 1 year and have worked at least 1,250 hours. Most of the employees, full-time employees that work 40 hours in a week, meet that goal of the 250 hours in 6 months. But they still have to wait to be a year with the company for them to apply for family leave in case they need to care for themselves. Let's say an employee had an accident outside of work, they need to be out for a month because they need surgery or something, so they can apply for that. Or to care for a family member, or bonding with a child, with a newborn. So there is so many other leave that we have to follow there and educate employees, and that's part of, I can say maybe benefit of the employee, but again, it's an entitlement and it's mandated and it's a law. Yes. We also have there, you were talking about paid sick leave, so employees effective as of last year, January 1st, 2024, there was a new law where all employers need to provide to their employees at least 5 days of sick pay or 40 hours. And we are already complying with that as well. Final wage payment, so when an employee is terminated, employees are required to provide their final paychecks promptly. Either the employee submits their resignation, provides a 2-week notice, or the employee may pick up the phone. Today will be my last day, I won't be able to come in for some reason. So we have to address that right away, where we have to overnight the paycheck of the employee so it gets there on time. Talked about also, well, there's other type of leaves, pregnancy disability leaves, and when I talk about leave of absences, it's not just FMLA, it's not just pregnancy disability leave, or because an employee is also out of workers' comp because they may be placed off work. But these are things that we consider when we see these things coming up to the HR department, because when an employee is out on leave, that will in a way hurt the department, will hurt the manager. The manager is going to be understaffed. Employees may be out for 12 weeks straight, or they may take intermittent leave. When employees are also on pregnancy disability, the doctor may place an employee on pregnancy disability prior to start even the other type of leave, which is the family medical leave of absence, which allows them to take another 12 weeks to bond with a child. So an employee can be placed under pregnancy disability leave for up to 4 months and 1/3. So that's a lot of time.
1/3 salary,
Hmm?
1/3 of their salary.
No, 4 months and 1/3. So it's, I would say,
Month and
yeah,
1/3.
4, yeah. So they can be out for 4 months. And the doctor can place them on leave for 4 months. So that department is not gonna have that employee for 4 months.
Right,
And after the employee is out, the doctor decides the employee is not on pregnancy disability leave anymore. Now the employee is gonna apply for family medical leave, which is bonding with your
so
child.
what you're saying is, what we're talking about here is how often employees are gone that we have no control over.
Exactly,
And in some cases, I know we've had to pay for temporary employees.
correct.
Yes.
Even though we might not be paying the employee, we're still paying for their insurance and all that other stuff.
Yep,
But
yep.
there's not a lot you can do
And
about
there's
it.
nothing.
And we'll see that in two
You gotta
ways,
do it.
the over expenses at the end of the year, is if we take a look at budgets, it's like, why is your payroll cost so high? One is because a person's not here, so we may have to go to a temp agency, which if you use a temp agency, they have their anywhere 20 to 30, 35% markup of that. Or you're putting the burden of the work onto the rest of the staff, which means overtime. So you're paying time and a half on extra work so we can get it done. So I will tell you, the struggle for managers is when this happens, sometimes they get frustrated at us, it's like, we're only upholding the law here.
Yes.
But these are entitlements that employees usually have to protect your job. What does that mean for us? Higher costs and potential disruptions in service to the community because we have employees that for legitimate reasons may need to be out. Whether it's associated with a workers' comp injury or pregnancy or family medical leave, yeah.
Yeah, I had to take off when my daughter was sick many
Yep.
years ago.
Mhm.
And I was glad I was able to do it and they
Yeah.
had my job, so,
And it's, all those leaves are job protected.
yeah.
Meaning that when the employee returns from the protected leave, so their job is gonna be there, or a similar
How-
position will be
is
there
there a
with the same
limit?
benefits.
Like when someone said, well, I need another 4 weeks, but they've already used up all that's allowed to them. How do you balance that and hold the job when you need to get the work done?
It's such a great question.
Yes.
That's
Such a great
just a
question.
dilemma.
Mhm. So all employees are entitled to take 12 weeks, and how we track that is, rolling 12 month. So they can
12
only,
weeks a month,
yes,
that's a
they can
lot.
only take 12
A year.
weeks, which is 3 months in 12
In a
months,
year,
in a year,
right.
yes.
So it's 3 months.
It's 3 months in a year, but also that needs to be supported by medical certification.
Yeah,
It's
of
not
course.
just by, sometimes the documents say just a month or a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
But
that's tough.
sometimes they have to go back for physical therapy or something, or
Yeah.
it make it worse if it was a surgery, like a couple months later, they maybe use only a month, couple months later, they may say, oh, I need another month now, the doctor's placing me again on place of work. And that's something that we cannot control. If we get that note from the doctor stating what the restrictions are, the time off that the employee needs to be out from work, and we have to follow that. We have to, it's protect, yeah.
And I'll add to that, it's not straightforward. So if you're a manager that's looking at your staff and trying to work with them, you can say, all right, well, they're protected leave, and so it's 12 weeks, so I'm gonna work with that, I'm gonna budget for the weeks, and then things will be back to normal. And it's not, because there are other laws that we're required to, which you've heard of American Disabilities Act, ADA. So that is a separate employment policy that regardless of these FMLA things, even if they're not eligible or they use it all up, as the employer, you're still required to evaluate their needs and to make reasonable accommodations. So if an employee had, let's say, and we've had the reality here, they've used their full 12 weeks, but they're not ready to come back, the doctor said, no, I still need to evaluate this person. I think they need to be out for another month. We can't say that, well, no, they used your 12 weeks and you're gone. We have to engage in interactive process to see, can we accommodate it? And for most employers,
That's hard.
in order to say that we can't accommodate, there has to be a huge financial cost or burden to the organization, which we would have to prove. And most of the time we can't.
Can't.
To say that, well, this person, all they need is an additional month off, or to work remotely, or to do these things. So that 12 weeks can extend, and the same things, I said, this disruption to service, the additional costs, all those things are compounded. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow, yeah, military leave, we understand.
Yeah,
And hope that
and
doesn't
they're
happen
legitimate. I
here.
see why these rules and policies were put into place, but it's a burden that's not often seen on
Right.
employers. What most people see on the surface is why am I not receiving this? Why the service impacted? Why am I not getting, what I expect? And those are legitimate needs why. This really is just to kind of explain some of the reasons that can occur behind the scenes of why these things
Then we
happen.
all say, well, just hire more people,
Well,
but don't raise my coupon.
Exactly, that's the direct.
Controlling over
Well,
time is
we
not
all have
easy.
that same complaint when we walk into a store and there's no one to help us.
Exactly.
Oh, I got that too.
We're on the receiving end.
Right,
It's a little
right.
Then I remember this and it's like, okay. I get it.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
and I'll be more, yeah.
That was kind of pretty much it. Like,
Okay,
I mean, I
anything
can
else?
go over and
Wow.
on
It
and
can be a
on.
It's
but-
very
No,
interesting.
Yeah.
we can talk-
It's very interesting.
we can go on all day talking about that.
Well,
Okay,
so-
anything else from either you two or anything from the committee? No questions out there? Okay, very good. Okay, the next meeting will be on Wednesday, June 11th.
So no meeting next month.
No meeting next month because it's short, it was scheduled shortly after the organization meeting.
Oh, okay.
So there's probably not enough time to get everybody in place, so move that to June. So June 11th at 1 PM in the boardroom and over Zoom. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Aren't you
at-
gonna say goodbye to me? And you?
Goodbye to us.
Well, for sure, they'll be gone, yeah,
Okay,
they're
and Eric
gone.
will be gone too.
Yes,
So-
Eric, well,
So,
Big change here, but let me take the time to just to express how much I appreciate all of you. Honestly. I mean, and it's heartfelt. I really appreciate your support and your support as well, to continue working. It's just, being part of the comp committee has been a pleasure. I love what I've done, what I do, but it's so nice when you have supportive leaders to kind of rally around you and that you get to work with. So I will miss that, but I appreciate all that you've done.
well, I would say that from our side, we appreciate everything you've done. I think you made, given us to understand all the HR issues.
Oh, yeah.
Managing all the issues, everything here, I think it's just been wonderful. I think the employee workforce is very, very good. I mean, it runs very smoothly from what I can see, and I've been in HR for over 15 years working in HR. So everything you talked about, I can relate to all of that. I implemented ADA in my company, so.
Yeah, there.
But you two remaining, you're in good hands.
Yeah, you're a good guy. So-
assuming we're on the committee next year.
Oh,
See, we don't
I
know
guess it's
until,
like-
we
Yeah,
don't
well,
know
that's,
until May.
well, organization meeting, it's when they decide that. But, I thank you and I welcome you and you got a big to fill.
Shoes to
Shoes
But also, I want to say, I really appreciate you gave so much advance notice that you're leaving, and you were able to bring in Arnold and, make it a smooth transition. And I think that really makes a huge difference. Not everybody would have been so proactive about that. We really appreciate that.
Well, when you give the notice to leave, I was kind of shocked.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anything else? If not,
And we wish you great, I know you have some caregiving
Yeah.
issues. If you need any advice, I've been there many, many times.
yeah, we'll give you some FMLA.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so let me adjourn the meeting at, what is that?
5-2.
Okay, yeah, 1:55. 1:55. Okay, thank you very much.